All right, greetings, guys and gals. Sorry for the delay. I am literally uploading the video. I thought it would have been done. I don't know if it's because I'm using my phone, multitasking with the same phone or whatever, but I'm gonna be honest with you, it's not even at 50% yet. But nevertheless, here is video number two, which might take forever. All right. So remember, I was telling you that there was a video that hopefully I shared this video with you way back when. Name of that video is Introduction to Art History. The name of the YouTuber is Art History 101. Um, it was on the 3rd of May, 2021, right? This video talks, it gives an introduction to art history. It gives us, yeah, I'll be looking at my book still. um what is art history, which kind of simply chimes in with whatever I would have shared with you in the previous video. Style, what is style, regional style, subject, attribution, patron, interdisciplinary bias, contextual style. Now I'll try my best. I went through the video and this time I made notes. So the notes are specifically what I'm going to share with you now, and we're going to try our best to breeze through this. Now, the video simply explains what art history is, what we are attempting to do, and the questions we're attempting to answer. Right? I really hope you hear me stressing a bit on watching this video. It's a big deal. As a student, I think it's a nice little introduction, and it provides, I don't want to say a different perspective, but a really nice breakdown. Anyway, so here we go. Art history would introduce you to things like ideas. The video aims to introduce you to ideas, concepts, and terminology that you will find in art or study of art, anything along that line. Art history is the academic study of the history and the development of visual arts, right? The art they are putting a piece of art into a vehicle called context with a specific culture, a specific society, a specific time period, even a specific geography. Okay, we must understand these various aspects or we'll be lost as we journey towards the meaning of the specific art piece. So art history is not just another boring subject, right? It is a language. It's the language that allows you to understand what the artist is saying. And that's the most simplest way to put that. Moving on. Art history provides more of a rounded understanding of a work you created, work any artist created, than pure appreciation or aesthetic study. You don't want to just be going, oh, it's such a beautiful piece. Like what makes it beautiful? What's the meaning behind it? What was the purpose and all of these things? All right, so the aim of art history here is to determine the original context, right? There's more on that. In how do we go about determining the original context is knowing or finding out when the art was made, where it was made, right? In terms of culture, um, was it the 1900s? Was it the 20th century? Where it was made in relation to geography? Was it Guyana? Was it USA? Was it over the river? That kind of thing. Why it was made? Why was the art made? Right? Who made the art? Art mirrors society, as you know already. Art imitates life. Okay? Art mirrors society, so students need to understand the specific society that the art was made in and every aspect of that society and time. Hence the reason this tends to take so long. I mean, art history in itself is big, it's thick, it's heavy. But if you're a lover of visual arts, genuine lover, you'll give this a chance. You'll give it a try. Art changed society. Art reflects society, right? We know this. So due to, all right, a couple of quick examples, right? You had them gentle leshy pieces. Don't let me do that. Don't let me do that at all. you had the art from that French artist David, right? He would have been doing pieces, they were political pieces, okay? They came out, they changed society. I remember he painted this piece with this individual who was sick. He had some kind of skin disease or condition or whatever. I believe in this very video that art piece is featured, so look out for it. Um, and in him putting that art out there, in him putting the subject, the person as dead, it made a big impact on society. French Revolution and all that kind of jazz. I think this was like either just before or maybe just after the French lady who told the people eat cakes and they cut off her head and so on. As I digress. Anyhow, so yeah, art changed society, art reflects society. Due to art integration, art history has become more valuable, right? So, some of the questions that you find art historians might tend to ask, or you as a student might actually ask, would be the age of the art. Who is the creator or who's the artist? Who's the buyer or the patron? Meaning of the art in the general history of society, civilization, etc. Okay. Now, the age of the art actually determined by the materials that would have been used, um, or even the method of going about creating the art piece. Age of art, or the reason you would want to know the age of the art is that the age gives us context and society it was created in. Okay. um Evidence plays a big role in determining the things like the age. For example, documentation. Let's say Chiquita bought um a Michelangelo piece at such and such a time, right? There would be some kind of documentation, sale of receipt, and so forth. Okay, there would be internal evidence. For example, you look at the art piece, and let's just assume this was a 70s piece. So most likely the persons would be moving around with piece symbols and wide bell bottom pants and rainbow colors and all that good jazz relating to that specific era. That's just one example. Okay. Other internal bits of evidence would be the specific style. Now that brings us over now to the stylistic evidence. Stylistic evidence based on the video. He is saying that it's not very reliable. Why? Because you could have been, who would have been doing this stuff? I want to give you an art piece that we could refer to, but keeping this kind of short. Anyway, so he's saying that they're not very reliable because the style and the period got a way of merging and blending. You remember, like right after the Renaissance, according to what they taught us in school, right after the Renaissance period, right, there was something called mannerism. That's a period where they were creating these elongated bodies with small heads, right? After that, I believe was the Baroque. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So before you even jumped into the Baroque, you would have had bits and pieces of mannerism is Renaissance, but then not so much. They were moving out from the Renaissance era, merging into something else. Now, this mannerism didn't last too long. And the point I'm trying to make is that you may find bits and pieces of the era afterwards in mannerism, and Renaissance also merged in there. So you kind of had a little milkshake, right? I'm going to stop right there because that can get confusing. All right, back to my book. So, style was identified based on the use of specific characteristics. We know that within the Baroque art, right, they compared to Renaissance. The colors, I believe, were brighter, they were darker. It had a way of making you feel, it had a way of making the viewers feel like they were part of the art or the art was reaching out to them. Hence the reason why the church was using this one a whole lot to make persons who didn't know how to read feel, evoke, stimulate their emotions. Come to church or else, that kind of way. All right, so back to the book. Style was identified based on the use of specific characteristics present in the art. Another quick example, the Rococo. They were sitting around all day. Apparently, they had nothing to do. So a lot of their art came with this candy, fluffy pastel colors like pinks and golds, and it was it was customary for a married man to have a couple chicks on the side, and customary for a married woman, I guess, to have some sugar daddies on the side. However you feel like putting it, this is what was taught, not in those exact words. So don't quote Miss Michael. But yeah, that was the society. That was that was the thing. So a lot of the painting from that specific area is highly, highly symbolic and was the word coded, right? There is this there's this piece of work where this girl looks like if she's sobbing, she's crying for this pet that she had, this dead bird. And on the surface, you would think, well, hey, yeah, poor thing, When you get down to the bottom of it, when you do the study of it, she is mourning the loss of her virginity. All right. And that was the thing of the society at that time. Moving on now, because I can just keep giggling like an idiot. All right. Yeah. However, art is dated. So you don't have to rely solely and wholly on the characteristics of the specific era, right? It's why we got things like signatures and dates and yada yada. Anyway, how do we develop these ideas of style? So we look at period styles, right? And then we move on to characteristics, artistic manners, or span of years. With that mouthful that was just given, an example would be like ancient Greece or high Italian Renaissance, as I just mentioned. Then within the video, he moves on to things like general styles. Now, again, remember, I'm just trying to summarize it. I'm just trying to give you a little. In case you didn't get to see that video, I do recommend go look at that video. Go look at the video. It's really awesome if you haven't done so already. Right. Regional styles. Now, this ties to geography, specific places. For example, bringing you to Egypt, according to the example that he used in the video, right? He speaks of old old kingdom Egypt versus new kingdom Egypt, and although they were two the same Africa but kind of different locations and so on, you'll find that the styles were a little different. You could tell the difference. If you're all nerdy like that, you could tell the difference, but at the same time they did have a common thread going through it. So we could most obviously differentiate from Egypt versus, I don't know, maybe the Caribbean, right? All right. He moves into personal style, where there's a distinctive manner or artistic style. He used Vincent van Gogh as that's how it sounded like he said it. Vincent van Gogh as the example. You would look at his work, knowing what you know about him, we could fit him within a certain era. We can fit him within a certain period, right? Then he talks about the evolution of an artist. And we kind of looked at Picasso a little bit. This is another example he used in the video. And if you know your thing more than me, you would have gone through something like the early realistic period. In the beginning, Vincent van Gogh would, sorry, correction, Picasso. Picasso started out as a realistic painter, okay? And as he of himself evolved, learned more things like all of us artists usually do, he moved on from that and he went into his blue period, followed by his cubist, and then there was a new era, right? Which abstract. Not anyway, you understand what I mean, because cubism is a form of abstract anyway, right? And then we hopped into the topic subject. What is the subject? So your subject or your story, right? Every art piece is telling a story of some sort. Subjects are divided into categories, right? There's a hierarchy of genres. And this basically happened, this is how I understood it. It happened because of what the value, how you are being paid. So I'm going to give it to you in the very order that he presents it in the video. So you are being paid the highest dollars for things like historical and religious subjects or historical and religious stories, followed by the genre, scenes, portraits, landscapes, and lastly, still life, right? you really wanted to make them dollars, you had to be doing things like, you've guessed it, history and religion. Okay? So based on how you, sorry, this is just me repeating myself again. This hierarchy determined how you got paid. Moving on to iconography and symbolism. All of this is part of the language. All of this made a lot of sense to know as a student. We then moved into attribution. Attribution is who made the art, okay? Who was the artist? And things like this, most obviously, as I mentioned earlier, would have been determined by the signature or even the specific style that the artist used, okay? This is pretty straightforward, so I'm not gonna diddle daddle here too long. Sometimes somebody could look at your work and say, hey, yes, this looks like a Tulsi piece. Look at the material he used. Look at his style. Look at the composition, right? So next we hop straight into the patrons or buyers. Now, as you know, I would like to assume that you know, back in the day, the patrons had a whole lot of rights because it was more like, okay, I hire an artist and I want this for the background. This is the subject. This is what I'm looking for. Make look good. Make me look good. They limited the artist's freedom, right? And so they had a whole lot to say. It wasn't like, oh, I want a painting, but you do what you feel like. Or I want a sculpture piece, you do what you feel like. Honest to God, that's it on that part. It went straight into now the interdisciplinary aspect of this came, or there was a rise in that within the 20th century period, right? Whereby he speaks of these various areas of people helping the art historian and vice versa. For example, they would use a chemist to help date a piece of art. They would call on the geologist who might identify where a specific art piece was, in this case, statues, like he says in the video, was quarriered, something like that. They would call on radiologists who may x-ray a painting to determine if it is fake, original, or even determine the specific like methods and so on of its making. They called art historians also help determine if art is from life or if it was, you know, a tribute. This was created after the person had died and all that good jazz. They call an archaeologist, they help anthropologists, archaeologists, different perspectives. They even help journalists. All right. Then he moves into one of the final subtopics known as bias. Because we know art is so subjective, there were many perspectives and assumptions and theories and all that good jazz. So here we go again. History, based on the book here that I have for you. History of art can be a history of artists and their work, of styles and stylistic change, of materials and techniques, of images and themes, and the meanings and the context, culture, and patrons. The best art historians use various approaches. The only objective aspect of art might be how it was created, right? Because there's certain evidence and clues and little breadcrumbs that lead you to realize, oh yes, he primed the canvas and then he sketch and then he add that background color. So now moving on straight into the contextual style, right? So contextual style simply gives a rounded perspective view. It gives you way more information than that you might need, right? Which is good. We need that, right? Everything has a reason. You can, in understanding the language altogether, you know why maybe they painted her with feathers, maybe why the feathers were blue, why she's wearing an orange shirt, why she's not smiling, why she is smiling, right? um, Art history is a language that teaches us to understand the arts. It teaches us to understand the artists and other visual arts created in relation to your creations, because you're a visual artist too. You're not just a student. Understanding the visual and the cultural world around you. This is what art history does. It helps you to understand the visual and cultural world around you, to better connect with everything, life. And the emos to get is done in 20 minutes. So yay! Questions, concerns, comments, leave me a message on WhatsApp. All right, good. So we can end this one and then we move on to the next one. I hope I ain't putting you to sleep. Please forgive me for the timing on this one too. Yeah.